4th down and goal from the 9. Carr throws into traffic. Intercepted. The Bengals have the ball. They are running it back. Sam Hubbard.
Stanford Jennings is going to go all the way. When it comes down, the Bengals are champions.
Now the Bengals Super Bowl chances rest on his right foot. The kick is up. It is good.
Today, Bengal fans, here we gather, talking football back for year 5. We're covering all things Who Dey Nation. We're glad you joined us here tonight. Special guests, past and present players. You never know who you might see. One thing that's for sure, it's all things Bengals. And it all goes back to charity. We at Talking Football want to thank you for joining us for the show tonight. By the fans, for the fans, until the very end. It's Talking Football with Bengal Jim and Friends. It's Talking Football with Bengal Jim and Friends.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the kickoff to year 6 of Bengal Jim and Friends. James and I with you tonight with a special off-season edition. Our special guest is Malik Wright. And James, I'm not going to say it's been a horrible day, but it certainly has not been a good day.
It's interesting. We were talking about the last time we were on, and I don't know if a lot has changed since the last time we've been on. It's disappointing, breaking news as we come on about the Steelers acquiring a player. We see Josh Allen get a big contract right before. A lot of things happening in the NFL. Not a lot of things happening at Paycor Stadium, as you can see underneath my name. It's like silent night down there. But our first guest, as you mentioned, we want to be conscious of his time. As always, this is kind of a tradition as we kick off free agency and bring Malik Wright with us. So without further ado, Malik, welcome to the Bengal Gymless edition of Bengal Jim and Friends.
Appreciate you guys for having me on. As always, it's good to be on the show for another year. It's not just me either, too, James and Tom. I got Daniel right here next to me as well. So, we're here. We're here. He'll be my spot in if I have to take a phone call or something like that.
You can't have Batman without Robin.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you guys so much. This is a crazy free agency, right? It's a crazy time. A lot of people are, let's say, losing their minds. I'm going to say, because this is a kid-friendly show. People are losing their minds right now because the Bengals have not popped across their screen, as to doing anything just yet. But again, we've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to get into, so I'll let you guys kind of lead the way.
100%. Before we get into the free agency and all that's happening, you guys were in my backyard just a week or so ago at the combine. Let's touch on that real quick. Maybe who the Bengals talked to, and give us a quick recap of your visit to Indianapolis and in the NFL combine.
Yes, I mean, the Bengals spent a lot of time with a lot of the top prospect defensive linemen, but it wasn't like your typical combine year, right? We're used to Bengals speaking to this guy and that guy and just kind of just weeding through. No, they were very intentional. The word that I took away from this past week at the combine was intentional. The Bengals were intentional with who they spoke with. They made sure that the people that they had interest in, they spoke to. There was no conversation with the Jack Sawyer. There was no conversation with the kid from Princely. They made sure they spoke to guys like James Pierce Jr. They made sure they spoke to guys like Walter Nolan. They made sure that they spoke to people like Mike Green. And these are people, some of these guys have some question marks around them. Some of them being character question marks. But what I took away was the Cincinnati Bengals are putting a huge emphasis on fixing this defensive line. So I'll tell you what, a lot of the moves that were happening, that had happened, were not really all that shocking, right? I expected Sam Hubbard to be going one way or the other. He opts to retire, which was sort of expected. Didn't expect Sam Hubbard to sort of continue his playing career if it was not in stripes. When you look at it, you obviously have the up in the air when it comes to a guy like Trey Hendrickson. I don't expect BJ Hill back. There's going to be a lot of question marks. It's going to be a lot of question marks. You got guys like Joseph Osai, who is a free agent. We all know who his representation is. So the Bengals are in overhaul mode of the defensive line. So expect this Bengals defensive line room to look drastically different. We already saw them part ways with guys like Sheldon Rankins. None of this should come as a shock. Listen, when your defensive line lacks the ability to get pressure, there is nobody that we're looking at and we're saying this is a guy that we've got to have back. The Bengals are not looking at it like saying there's anybody on this defensive line, obviously Trey Hendrickson excluded here, that we're looking at and we're saying, well, we probably can't find an upgrade somewhere, right? And their mentality is they need to do whatever it takes to apply more pressure on opposing teams. Apply more pressure, get more pressure to opposing quarterbacks because they really believe in the young defensive back room that they have with guys like Dax Hill, Cam Taylor, Britt, who they're giving another opportunity to. He has another leash on life here. They really believe that this young defensive back room that they have has a lot of potential, but they've got to help them up front, and that starts in free agency. That starts with the draft. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Stepping forward, you mentioned the cuts. Sheldon Rankins, I think everybody was on board with, he's going to be gone. Alex Kappa. There was talk of Jermaine Pratt.
Yeah.
Does that change now with the amount of linebackers that have just recently signed in the last week? What's your thoughts on that situation?
Well, I think that situation still has to play itself out a little bit to a degree, right? To be completely transparent with you, James, I don't even think the Bengals know what they're going to do with the Jermaine Pratt situation just yet. I think there was some idea that, hey, we're going to move off of him, probably try to get younger at the linebacker spot, and that's something that could still happen, right? We also know that he had one of his best years under Al Golden when he was the linebackers coach. senior defensive linebackers coach, but also senior defensive guy here in Cincinnati. He had a lot of success under, the Bengals' new defensive coordinator, Al Golden. So, anytime you're making switches like that, especially at such an important position that Jermaine Pratt plays, you want to make sure you have your ducks in a row. But I'll tell you right now, I'd be shocked. I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth anymore. I put my foot in my mouth 2 years ago and I said it. I'd be shocked if Jermaine Pratt is here opening day. I'd be shocked if Akeem Davis-Gaither was brought back. At this point, I'd be shocked if Joseph Osai is brought back. Reason being is his agent, we all know who that is he is pushing for him to test the open market. And this was Joseph Osai's best year that he had in a Cincinnati Bengals uniform, right? So maybe a team is willing to go out there and offer Joseph Osai so much money. It's been hard pressed to negotiate with the Bengals for Dave Mogetta. We'll see what happens there. But I'd be pretty shocked. I think anytime you get guys on the open market getting a chance to really test their value, the way the structure of these contracts break down, it's always more lucrative for them to sign elsewhere versus go back to Cincinnati, even if the numbers might be similar up front. You get more security, you get more guarantees. That's why I was such a proponent of Mike Gesicki signing before free agency hit, because let me tell you right now, there was a bit of a talk. There was talk that Mike Gesicki might not sign with Cincinnati right away because this was the first time Mike was going to test himself on the open market, right? This is the first time he's coming off of a great year where he had the ability to test himself. The last time he did that, he got franchise tagged by the Dolphins, and then Mike McDaniel came in, tanked his value. He had to sign a low ball deal. We all know how that sort of worked out. So he came to Cincinnati. He shocked me a little bit, honestly, because I was told that the expectation was Mike Gesicki was still trying to figure out if he was going to test the open market. So it was good that they were able to get that deal done, wrapped up, because a lot of these guys, you can't afford to have some of these guys go to free agency because the chances of them coming back is very, very slim, especially when you get money thrown at you that you have never seen before. But James, I went off on a long tangent, as you know I do, brother. Continue.
Before I go to Tom, you mentioned Mike Gesicki, which was on my notes. With 3 year, $25 million, I believe, was the number. I thought that was double what he was going to get on a 3 year deal. Are you shocked by the numbers for what he signed?
No. I'm telling you right now, there were teams that were breathing down the possibility of Mike Gesicki hitting free agency. The Saints were a team that I was told was interested in him. The Denver Broncos were a team that I was told were interested in him. Hell, I was told the New England Patriots were like, holy hell, we didn't realize who we had on our hands, right? And now they got a quarterback in there like with Drake May. The more options, the more weapons you can get that guy, the more success that we could potentially have. Mike Gesicki, let me be very, very clear to you. If Mike Gesicki hit free agency, he would not be back in stripes in Cincinnati, because I think some team would have come in with an even bigger offer than what Cincinnati was willing to pay. But Cincinnati, you know what? They get their guy at an average that was expected, to be honest with you. Maybe a little bit more of a pay upgrade, but that's what you get for a guy. Let's make no qualms about it. He helped unlock the Bengals offense this year. He helped unlock Jamar Chase, right? Now you don't have two guys just staring at Jamar Chase, putting such a hyper focus on Jamar Chase. You now are able to get those one-on-one matchups at times for guys like Jamar. You're able to get those one-on-one matchups for guys like T. Higgins. And then you got Mike Gesicki, who everybody forgets about because you got the big two there, and now he's going to be able to eat. Now he's able to have some success. But Daniel, hop in here.
Yeah, and when you look at the tight end room, there's a lot of discussion of, people saying this is one of the worst tight end rooms in the NFL. I disagree. I think this is arguably the Bengals' most consistent room on the roster. You look at the guys, obviously you got Sample, you got Grandy, and when you look at they re-signed Tanner Hudson, Mike Gesicki for the next 3 years is going to be a 600 plus receiving yard guy. And he's the guy where you look at every single game that T. Higgins was out, who was the guy that stepped in? It was Mike Gesicki. So I really think Gesicki
I'll go a step further. The Bengals did not unlock Mike Gesicki until the mid to end of the season.
Yeah.
If they would have used Mike Gesicki the way that they used him at the end of the season, Mike Gesicki probably would have pushed for 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
And guess what? I think that the guy, he has the receiving ability to do that. With questions on the back end of the roster from a playmaking standpoint of guys like Andre Yoshivas, right? He's a good player, but you question, can he make those plays down the field? Does he have the ability to stretch and really put stress on these defenses? And then you have the issue with Jermaine Burton. You don't know. The character concerns are a real thing. Is he going to be able to overcome that? You bring back Mike Gesicki, you kill two birds with one stone. Make no mistake about it. He played his position says tight end, but he really is a big slot threat for the Bengals, and he gives them another playmaker, a guy that if you are an opposing defensive coordinator, you have to now pay respect. You have to now stress, how are we going to stop Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow, even using the ability with his legs this year more, right? And then now you got Mike Gesicki in the fold. This was a huge get for the Bengals. It answers a lot of questions, and it helps bring some of those guys that we talked about along a little bit slower, right? You want to see the progression for a lot of these guys, but I think bringing back a guy like Mike Gesicki does a lot for this offense.
Yeah, and even at the NFL Combine, when we were talking to these tight ends, there was two players in specific. One was Mason Taylor, LSU's tight end, who I believe is going to be a very good tight end. Two guys said they try to model their game after one player, Mike Gesicki. So when you hear, players coming up talking about the play style Mike Gesicki, it should show Bengals fans and, what the Bengals have with Mike Gesicki. He's a guy where teams value him. And like I said, his size and his athletic ability does not go unnoticed. And he's one of the golden paths to this Bengals offense.
Tom?
Guys, jumping to the other side of the ball. We're going to lose, as Malik just said, we're going to lose our top three defensive ends from opening day 2024. Hendrickson, Osai, and Hubbard.
Tom, I want to be very, very clear, brother. The only reason why is because people have taken what I've said on this show before and run with it. I just want to be extremely clear. This is Malik Wright speaking. I'd be shocked to see Joseph Osai, just based on what I'm hearing, what I know from people I've talked, I'd be shocked to see Joseph Osai back in Cincinnati because of who his agent is, how difficult it is to negotiate with the Bengals. I'd be shocked, right? For is Cam Sample's a free agent too, I believe, right? I'd be shocked to see a lot of these guys returning to the fold. I think you could see the emergence of guys like Cedric Johnson, who the Bengals were very, very excited about to see the progress. For Trey Hendrickson, let me just say this too, Tom. There's a lot of talk out there. It's not out of the realm of possibility that the Bengals are like, because I can tell you right now, the Bengals offer Trey Hendrickson $23 million. That is not a hearsay number. That is not a number that I'm pulling out of my ass or thin air. That is the number for concrete. The Bengals offer Trey Hendrickson $23 million. Trey Hendrickson wanted more commitment for the years, right? And commitment beyond the years. The Bengals were not willing to. The Bengals' final stance as of the last time they spoke was $23 million. Trey Hendrickson's like, okay, well, do I have permission to seek a trade? I love Cincinnati, but I want to make sure my future is secured, the end of my playing career is secured, because once again, very similar, he's never been able to explore the open market with coming off of, record-breaking type numbers in NFL sack leader. So the Bengals are saying, you know what? You can do that. You can do that because they're betting that Trey Hendrickson's not going to get what he's asking for it. And by the way, I don't think Trey Hendrickson is asking for this astronomical number. I don't think he's asking for an astronomical number. I believe if the Bengals are willing to up their offer a substantial amount just to make it a little more competitive, I think Trey stands. The Bengals are like, hey, you're a pass rush specialist. You're elite pass rush specialist, but this is the amount that we're willing to go. Let's see if some other team will offer you that. And I'm being long-winded here, but I think they're banking that a team is not willing to negotiate and give Trey Hendrickson the contract that he's looking for. He comes crawling back to the Bengals, and then he takes the $23 million that they're anticipating. What's going to be interesting is if a team says, hey, you know what, Trey, we'll give you $25 million. We'll give you $26 million. We'll give you $27 million. Would the Bengals be willing to play ball in that type of game? Because at that point, understand, the Bengals still own the rights to Trey Hendrickson for this year. He's not a free agent, right? So if he comes back to them and says, well, we got to deal with the Commanders, and the Commanders are willing to pay me $27 million a year, would the Bengals just say, we'll take
29?
Right. Well, like we'll take 29. Or will the Bengals say, you know what? No, we don't want you to. We'll sign you for that. We'll sign you for that, and we'll agree. Part of it is a little bit of posturing on the Bengals end. Just to giving him the ability to seek a trade does not mean that you're gone. That's all I want to say.
If he does go, and let's switch back, and we'll shift to the rest of the line in a minute.
Sure.
There are those who are trying to fit the pieces of the puzzle together, or who was it? Duke Tobin's big on pie, so we'll figure on that.
That needs to be retired, by the way. Yeah.
Well, we'll figure on enough slices of the pie. And if there was a guy that to go of the big name free agents, it would be Trey. My thought is this: if Trey was 28 years old, I'd be up screaming, you know what? He deserves that 30. Give him that 30. Give him that 34 years. He turns 31 during the season. Mm-hmm. If there is, and 30 has always been a magical number in the NFL, and especially this franchise. It was a Paul Brown rule almost. Mm-hmm. You start looking to replace a guy when he was 30. Mm-hmm. If his play is going to drop off, and I think this upcoming year, he'll probably have another great year. I don't know if he's going to have 17 and a half sacks. Yeah, but he'll be strong double digits. Do you want to invest 3-4 years in a guy that's going to be 34 or 35 when his contract ends, shelling out 27, 28, 29 million?
So I believe that this has been a fear mongering going on. To be honest with you. And I hate it because you have the nerds that pull out all the stats and they pull out the numbers and they say, a pass rusher of this, and they try to I saw someone trying to compare Trey Hendrickson to Hassan Reddick and Khalil Mack. Neither of those guys were putting up Trey Hendrickson style numbers. So I understand, like, that all has a place in our game, right? It's a way we can mesh it together. But trying to anticipate someone's fall off, well, that's ridiculous. That's like the Cavaliers anticipating LeBron James falling off and not being this great player. Well, and now he's 40 years old, still playing great, right? So for me, it's like you played that same game with Andrew Whitworth and you lost.
But Whit is 1 in a million.
Right.
Or
but
1
Trey
in
1,000.
Hey, this city's been burned in all kinds of sports like that. Oscar
100%.
Robertson, Frank Robinson, Andrew Whitworth. I mean,
100%.
I don't know who thought Andrew Whitworth would leave here and 5 years later still be playing at a Pro Bowl level. I'm not even sure he did.
Right. My point for saying that is, though, that is operating in fear. That is operating in fear. Trey Hendrickson has not shown us anything to believe thus far that he's falling off. If anything, this should be a knock on the Bengals to say, hey, you know what? We need to go out there and get the guy even more help to prolong his prime. There's a guy, by the way, in Buffalo that just got cut today that is a pass rush specialist at this point in his career by the name of Von Miller, who 2 years ago got $200 million guaranteed. 200. And the only reason why he got cut, because he had a productive year in Buffalo, was because of the contract that they gave him, because they were begging for pass rush help. Trey Hendrickson has deserved the contract 2 years back to back, 17 and a half. That's no fluke. And that's with very little help. He is the only pass rusher. You know, when I would actually play the game of, you know what, we could move on from Trey Hendrickson, is if you saw something from another pass rusher on the Bengals that made you feel, hey, you know what, we got a guy behind Trey that we feel comfortable about. But no, that has not happened. Blame it on coaching. Blame it on, the players. You don't have true pass rushers behind Trey Hendrickson. You don't have
this franchise is terrible at having successors ready,
right
at all positions.
Right.
They've miscalculated there. I think more than anything else, on point of the big three, Jamar, T, and Trey. If you're going to say 1, 2, 3, I would say because of that, Trey is probably priority 3.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's not even so my next point for that, by the way, and this isn't me staying on the table saying the Bengals shouldn't trade Trey. This is me pretty much saying what has gotten him to this point so far. You lowball the guy. Now you're saying, okay, go out there, seek a contract. And even if he does go out there and seek a contract, the Bengals are still going to operate on their terms. Are you willing to give us what we anticipate? Trey's not negotiating with the Bengals saying, hey, with the other team saying, hey, what would you give the Bengals for me? No, that's not. He gets the opportunity to go out there and say, are you interested in me? Yes or no? Can my agent and you work out a deal? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, cool. Now then the Bengals come in as they're the middleman, just bringing the two teams together, saying, okay, do we have an agreement? Does this trade compensation work for the Bengals? And if the trade compensation works for the Bengals, then it would happen. But understand, the Bengals are not going to just give Trey Hendrickson away, coming off 2 back-to-back 17 and a half sacks.
Staying there, falling a little bit back on the defense.
Mm-hmm.
A guy that we all really thought had been a heck of a player, a really good starter, was going to jump into a Pro Bowl competition, Pro Bowl team last year, was Cam Taylor-Britt. Instead, the first half of the season, other than that incredible interception of Mahomes, was a nightmare. He got benched twice, then came back the last month of the year, granted, not against the greatest quarterbacks in the world, but those last 5-6 weeks as the team picked up steam, he was back. He was a good NFL starter. Have you heard... And we had Eric Thomas on, talked a long time about that. Eric Thomas was almost in tears. He so desperately wants to talk to the young man. But have you heard what the speculation was? Can it be fixed? Is it a concern? Do they think he can return to form and hopefully be here a very long time?
Yes, they do believe he can return to form, but part of it is Cam has to, he has to do the work himself as well. They can't do it for him, right? You have to be consistent. You have to be a pro's pro. They were anticipating him to step in and be cornerback 1 this year. Dax Hill, I believe, before the injury happened, he played all camp like cornerback 1, and I think that he was emerging before the ACL tear. This is a Cam Taylor-Britt thing that he needs to work on. I do believe Cam can get it corrected because guess what? Life in the NFL is short, right? You get opportunities and then they fall by the wayside, but it's up to you to, operate and approach it like a pro every single day. Now, he wasn't dealing with some of the same stuff that a guy like Jermaine Burton might have been dealing with off the field, but he still did not approach it as professional, coming into camp a little bit overweight, out of shape. These were some of the concerns that the Bengals had. So, I think this is a thing where, you hope for the best. You believe that this was just a knock, up and down at times, but they believe Cam Taylor-Britt can bounce back. And I believe they believe that because I don't think that they're truly, searching for a veteran upgrade at the cornerback position. They believe in this young crop, and that's a nod, a tip of the hat to a guy like Cam Taylor-Britt. And the other thought process behind this is, you know what? We got DJ Turner, right? We got Dax Hill, right? Even though Dax is coming off an injury, but we've got guys that are ready that we believe could play the boundary cornerback position that can give us a lot of success there. And I've seen people even saying, throwing the idea out there, well, maybe Cam Taylor-Britt can move into the slot. I don't think he has the twitch to move into the slot. I think that he is better served outside as a boundary corner. I'm hoping that he can get that point part of his game figured out, and I think he will.
Before I kick it back to James on that, do you think Dax Hill goes back to the slot where he excelled when he was at Michigan? I feel bad. It'll be his 3rd position in 4 years, but he kicked butt in the slot at Michigan.
Yeah, well, that's twofold question, right? Because he was played all over the place. He was really a Swiss Army knife. I think that you are really encouraged by what you saw from Dax Hill on the boundary. I think that there will be a battle. Of course, Dax Hill can kick inside, but you have to also ask yourself, coming off an ACL tear, do you want to put that stress on him? right? Playing in the slot, being the ability to cover. If anybody can do it on this team, it's certainly Dax Hill. But I think that you also are encouraged by what you've seen from Dax Hill on the boundary side of things. And I think that I think it'll be tough for the Bengals just to say, hey, we're going to just throw Dax Hill in there. But I think all options are certainly on the table.
I think that spices up the cornerback position. I want to dwell on that all night, but Al Golden is known for liking the cornerbacks on a boundary, not with a lot of help. So whoever's out there is going to need to be able to play one-on-one, man-to-man. I'm going to pin you two against each other, Daniel and Malik, looking at next week. Well, starting tomorrow, I think that the word will come out of free agent signings. If you had your little crystal ball right here, Daniel, who do you pick? Malik, who do you pick as the first free agent signing of the Bengals? 24 hours. Daniel, you go first. Malik's done a lot of talking tonight. We need to let him cool off for a bit.
And we're talking non-re-signs, right?
Correct. Yes, sir. Do we go defense? Do we go offense? What do you think?
I think the Bengals are team. The two positions I would say it's either going to be pass rush or offensive line. I think if I had put my guess on it, I think that they probably go. I'm going to say pass rush. I think they go with like an Azeez Ojulari. I think that this isn't going to be a guy. It's Azeez Ojulari or Chase Young. Those are the two guys that I would say.
I heard a little sneaky thing that this Chase Young might be going back to the Saints.
Really?
Yeah.
So
we'll see.
Azeez Ojulari, I'd say, and like I said, I think that those are the two positions that I look at and say, hey, the Bengals are pretty, forward with going after the positions we saw last year, right? Attacking the safety position. I think that it'll be pass rusher into your offensive line. And I think with the fact that Baron Browning re-signed with the Cardinals, I think Azeez is probably the one that I'm looking at saying, hey, he's the guy that I can bring in, play 35, 45% of the snaps and just pin your ears back and go after the quarterback. So I'd pick Azeez.
Well, I can say right now, Baron Browning was a guy the Bengals I heard might have some interest in. So when he signed with the Cardinals, doesn't shock me. It completely writes off Azeez Ojulari going to play with his brother, obviously. For me, definitely interior offensive line. I'm told the Bengals are going to be aggressive in the offensive guard market. We'll see what that looks like. Does that mean that they'll finally up how much they're willing to guarantee? A name to keep an eye on that I've heard just from circles. That doesn't necessarily mean by the Bengals, because we know the Bengals don't tamper. The Bengals don't talk to players until it's time to talk to players. But Tevin Jenkins is a name that I think I would keep my eyes on for Cincinnati, potentially. I say the word potentially because we never know what free agency is going to look like. We don't know what these guys are going to get offered once they hit the open market. But the Bengals are apparently going to attack the offensive guard spot. We'll see how serious they are.
How is his back? I know that was a concern coming into the league.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely been hurt. But when he's out there, he looks really damn good. He looks dominant, and I think that, Chicago had interest in bringing him back, but he was much more interested in leaving Chicago, which is why Chicago really pushed extremely hard for making the trade for Joe Thuney and some of the moves that they made as well. So I think that Tevin Jenkins is going to have a market. I think teams are going to be interested in him. It's going to be about what the offer is going to look like there. I know people have mentioned Will Fries. Yes, his last name is Fries too. That's how you say it. This is a guy that has sucked. I'm just going to be transparent with you. He's looked terrible for the last 2 seasons. He was one of the most penalized guards in the National Football League, and I get it. He was having a terrific contract here, like a lot of these guys do, especially when it's time to get paid. But he played 5 games. It was a 5-game sample size. He got hurt, fractured his tibia. He was out for He was out for the rest of the season. So I think the sample size of what you've seen from a guy like Will Fries has been so limited. For the Bengals to commit serious dollars to a guard like a Will Fries, to me, that would scare me, because what if it doesn't pan out? It might literally interrupt the entire operation. It might scare the Bengals off the opportunity of signing a big money free agent again. And I just think that you want as much of a there's no such thing as a sure thing when it comes to these guys. But you want as much as a sure thing as you possibly can get to sign these guys back. You got the Mekhi Becton, right? People talking about that. Does he want to come to Cincinnati? We obviously know they flirted with the idea. He had a great visit with the Bengals last year, and the Bengals straight up just said, we're good. They weren't interested. And he obviously at that point in time wasn't sure if he wanted to move into the inside or if he wanted to play tackle. We obviously know with the Eagles, he went to the Eagles school of retooling your career, and he did great for himself. He made himself a lot of money. How much money? That's to be determined. And what do teams see Mekhi Becton as a tackle, as a guard? Because where he made his money this year was at guard, and he looked damn dominant doing it, making sure that they had another guy keeping Jalen Hurts upright. So for me, it's going to be one of those things where what does Mekhi Becton's market look like coming off of a Super Bowl? It's going to be very, very interesting. But I was told the Bengals are going to be serious in the guard market. I know everybody has heard that. Obviously, Kelsey Conway does a great job. James Rapine does do great jobs, and they've kind of already talked about it and alluded to it already. But I'm just saying what I was told at the combine was reinforced this past week to me. It was reinforced 2 days ago to me. It was reinforced yesterday to me. The Bengals plan to be serious in the guard market. We'll see. I hope that they get serious about it.
I know you got a meeting to go to, Malik, and then Daniel's going to stick around with us, right, Daniel? Or you have to go too?
He has to go too.
Oh, okay.
Before
you guys go, though.
We got some more time.
Okay.
Let's
go. And this blowing up in the chat, what is
Yeah.
going on with Jamar and T? Why haven't they been signed? Is it on their side wanting more money? The Bengals not willing to pony up? What just give us the scoop on those two best you can.
As best as I can, it'll always come down to how you structure your contracts. How you structure your contracts if you're the Cincinnati Bengals matters. These guys, especially playing non-quarterback premium position, right? They're always going to try to look to secure their future long term. That's going to be the biggest thing. It's never about the Bengals not having the cap space. It's never about the Bengals not wanting to operate, and meet their asking price for guys they really value. It tells you they value Higgins if they're willing to franchise tag him for another year, which they very, very rarely do. It's always going to come down to how you structure your contract and how you that we're talking about years, talking about guarantees, mainly the guarantees when it comes to the Bengals. That's what it's always going to come down to. And if the Bengals want to operate like a modern franchise and the Bengals want to compete for a championship, they have to change the way that they structure their deals. They're willing to go above and beyond for a guy like Joe Burrow, but what about guys like Jamar Chase? What about guys like T. Higgins? And I understand with T. Higgins, you're trying to build a contract that's super incentive based because T has dealt with so many injuries the last few years. I get that. But if you franchise tag a guy, you say, hey, tag your rate, you're not able to approach the free agent market again, at least play ball with him. At least give him what he's asking for. At least talk serious numbers in terms of the guarantees beyond just year one and beyond year two. This is a guy that doesn't want a contract that's going to be heavily incentivized. And no matter what deal T. Higgins signs, Cincinnati is going to have heavy incentives involved with it because he has dealt with injuries. And that's something that you just can't miss, right? But at the same time, I think for the Cincinnati Bengals, I think that they have to change the way that they kind of operate because I think that it could hurt them in the free agent market trying to, sway other talented players to come to Cincinnati.
Tom?
Getting back to defense.
Mm-hmm.
Defensive ends or defensive tackles coming first? And what about our two baby defensive? Jenkins and Jackson, the Bengals are big on, and this mentality goes back to 1968. Hey, we spent a 2 and a 3 last year up the middle on defense. We expect these guys to be coached up and we expect them to perform.
Yeah, let me just say first off, too, when we look at the defense, this is kind of a little bit of my concern, right? Very quickly in free agency, we see the top tier guys go, right? The Milton Williams, the Josh Sweats. And for me, if we're having the Trey Hendrickson conversation as well, Trey getting traded frees up $16 million. But you can't go after these guys, in my opinion, the Josh Sweat, the Milton Williams, unless you have the Trey situation figured out. So that's why, when I look at this, I would definitely look at saying, hey, you've got to get the Trey situation figured out before you go after these big guys. But
no, you don't. Why?
Because I don't know what's the difference of going after getting Josh Sweat for 24 million and then you got to figure out Trey Hendrickson's situation.
I think the Bengals are looking at it like this. Let me tell you right now. There is a bevy of guys on the defensive end in the draft this year, right? And I hate the way that they practice this because the Bengals 100% will look at defensive end and say, you know what? We like this guy. We like that guy. Hey, you know what, Trey? Maybe we don't need you like the way we think we need you. And then they'll say, hey, you know what? We'll fix it, do the interior. Listen, this is an overhaul sweeping change they need to do. They rested on their laurels during the Super Bowl run, and they thought they could run it back with the same pieces and not add to the pies. And then you blame all these other people and you say, you're the reason why this didn't work, or you're the reason why that hasn't worked, right? The fact of the matter is they did invest a pick into Myles Murphy, who, by the way, let me just say this right now. I still believe can be something in this league, and I actually believe Myles Murphy could do a lot better on the interior of the defensive line than on the edge. That's just my personal opinion. That's not what anybody has told me. I believe that there is a real life to Myles Murphy moving on the interior. I think that puts him at a premium spot. 6'5", 260. Like that's something you just, or two, maybe it's even more, 285.
Yeah.
You can't just teach that. So for me, I think that there should be some more consideration with Myles Murphy moving to the interior. That all being said, I hear where you're coming from. I hear where you're coming from. If you're serious about trading Trey, right?
Yep.
Get a pick back. Yep. Get a pick back, a premium pick. Now, right? And we know the Bengals are not going to trade him for a 4th round or a 5th round like some suggest. We know the Bengals looking for a 2nd or a 1st or back end 1st. And be honest with you, for the NFL sack leader, right? That's not out of this world to ask for, especially when we're talking about some of the back end guys. It shouldn't be. And I think that part that's going to be getting over with. It's going to be, hey, you know what? Are the Bengals willing to play ball in those waters? Are the Bengals willing to do this? And you know, when it comes to guys like Mike Green who are coming out of the draft this year, you do have to talk about the character concerns. The character concerns are not just something we can sweep under the rug and just say, that's not legit. It is legit. It is legit. It is real things that you have to answer for. And for Cincinnati that just came back, for me, I got to ask myself, for a team that just took a chance, a swing on Jermaine Burton, how much did the Jermaine Burton saga scare them away from really going after guys with check marks or checkered pass? Does that scare them? Albeit it was a situation 2 years ago for Mike Green, but does it scare teams away? Does it scare the Bengals away? Does it make them want to make sure that they get a slam dunk pick, at that premium spot? So for me, it's like, it's interesting, right? There is no guy in free agency that I'm looking at and saying, well, you could replace Trey Hendrickson with that type of production. So no, you're looking at the draft for one of these guys. You're looking at the draft for one of these guys. Are you willing to swim in the water for interior defensive line for guys like Milton Williams? No. Patriots about to throw so much money at him. Cardinals about to throw so much money. It's going to be a bidding war for his services. We saw the Cowboys didn't even want to flirt with. They brought Osa Odigizua back ASAP. They don't even want to flirt with those waters. They don't want to do it. You're much more likely the Bengals bring in a veteran interior defensive lineman and go that route. That all being said, if you can get a premium pick back for Trey Hendrickson, and what I mean by that is, hear me out, you can double dip at the defensive line position, because the defensive line position needs as much help as possible. If the Bengals can get a premium pick back for Trey, whatever that looks like, well, guess what? Then you could afford the ability to go defense back to back, and then in the second round, do what you need to do, draft offense, or do whatever whatever that might. Maybe you go Tate Ratledge in this. Like, I don't know. But it's something that's real. It's a situation that's real for the Bengals. And what can an extra $16 million do? Again, that has no bearing on T. Higgins. That has no bearing on Jamar Chase. But what can an extra $16 million do for this team that's trying to push and compete and retransform this defense? I don't know. That's my thoughts.
Completely. I think your point on the veteran defensive lineman goes to what Tom was asking about. Chris Jenkins. I think that's personally the best avenues, right? Pairing up with Chris Jenkins, getting a veteran who can play. Once again, defensive linemen, they don't play 100% of the snaps.
Right.
You have guys 5, 6. There's so many different, whether it's positions. Get a guy like we talked about, like Calais Campbell, Jonathan Allen. Get one of these veteran guys who come in here, help mentor Chris Jenkins, and just give you 30, 40, 50% of snaps, because defensive line is a rotation. And I'm with you. I think you definitely have to add a veteran, to pair with a Chris Jenkins.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about character, I'm just going to pop this up real quick, going back to the combine. Was the rumors true about him? Is that, with that being said, do you think he's definitely off the draft board?
Who are you saying? James Pierce Jr.?
Yeah.
No, no. He was one of the first teams the Bengals met with. This is a guy the Bengals have done a lot of homework on. I do think that there's some, when they say character concerns with him, they're talking about what ticks him off, what pisses him off. Is he coachable? Right? How's his attitude? Those are things. The talent is elite. It's undeniable. It's something that you'd be a fool to knock it off your board. There's some people out there, we can see him fall to the second round. Yeah, if you really think Howie Roseman's going to let that guy fall past them, you're an idiot. I got a bridge to sell you in Mexico, where Jim is right now. You know what? The simple fact of the matter is, that ain't true. This is teams posturing, teams doing this. His character concerns are made based on attitude. Mike Green's character concerns based on situation, real stuff. So it's all about what you're willing to accept and what you will allow. For me, if it came down to Mike Green and James Pierce Jr., I believe today, as it stands, without talking to anybody, I believe the Bengals would go with James Pierce Jr. over Mike Green. Why? Because the Bengals have a type. It's like if you see a pretty girl walk by and you're like, you know what? I like that. That is my type. That is what I want. well, this one might be more productive for you, but you're like, nah, this is my type. That's what I go. Mike Green does not fit their stature, their type that they like more. Is the production great? Yes. If he is there and a Walter Nolan's there, who's the pick? That's the conversation to have, right? But for a guy like James Pierce Jr., who fits the elite, who has the elite production, let's call it what it is. He has the elite production. He has the size. He is their type. He has a school. He played at big games. He checks off all the boxes, and the character concerns are less of a concern as opposed to a Mike Green.
And just from, hearing what Tobin was saying and just looking at the Bengals defense line, they need juice on the pass rush, and they definitely acknowledge it. So when we talk about guys, there's a bunch of these pass rushers, but they should totally be interested in these guys with the fast get off and guys who can just get after the passer. I understand some of these guys like maybe have size concerns. At the end of the day, you need a guy who can rush the passer, and that's what James Pierce Jr. and Mike Green can both do for you.
Elite.
Tom?
Guys, we've touched on the line, a little bit on the linebackers and the corners. Safety was a train wreck last year. It was not good.
Yep.
When they were lined up properly, they couldn't tackle, or they'd drop a pick or anything else. Geno Stone, like everybody else, seemed to come on a little bit in December, and it can be tough for a safety to assimilate a new defense. He's going to have to do it again this year. We're looking for wholesale changes at both safety spots. Geno coming back. We're going to save some money with Geno. What do you guys see? What's your crystal ball tell you?
My crystal ball, my crystal ball tells me Geno Stone will be back in stripes. My crystal ball tells me Jordan Battle will have a huge impact on this Bengals defense, and this is somebody that they're really excited about. Now, in terms of the future of the safety position, I believe that if an Xavier Watts was sitting there at 49, I think the Bengals would run to the podium. I think he is a guy the Bengals would consider. I think if you get an extra pick for a guy like Trey Hendrickson, I think if Malachi Stark's sitting there, I think he is somebody that you have to consider. I do not believe Geno Stone is the long-term answer from the free safety position for the Bengals, but I do think he is the answer as it stands today on the 9th. The ninth, right? I think that he is. So I'll answer your question. He is playing football in Cincinnati this year, but do not be shocked that the Bengals added a safety of the future in the draft, and then that person takes over down the road.
And when you look at the free agency class as well, like these guys are going to get a ton of money. Trayvon Merrick, has a connection with Antonio Pierce still with, defense coordinator Patrick Graham still with Las Vegas. Nate Hobbs has a huge market. Javon Holland is going to get touted by the Vikings, by the Broncos. There's so many different teams that want these top tier safeties. So they're going to make a lot of money. I agree with you. I think the safety class, whether it's a Watts, even like I said, Malachi Starks is a guy I'm not the biggest fan of, but he's Georgia. He's a five-star athlete.
I was very disappointed to see the Bengals not even show a lick of interest in Andrew Makuba. I was so disappointed. He is my favorite safety in this draft. I like Xavier Watts. I like him. I do. But Andrew Makuba has ball skills that to me are just off the charts. He played at a big school. You know what he's about. I was not a fan that they didn't talk to him, but I'm being real with you. There's a lot of blaming on Lou Anarumo right now from people in Cincinnati. They're saying, you know what? These guys have looked a lot better when the defense was simplified. How much better will these guys look with Lou Anarumo out of the picture? I do believe the defense will look better because I do think Al Golden will simplify things. He's going to transition to a 4-3 defense, so you will see 3 linebackers on the field at mostly all times, whereas suppose Lou stayed in the nickel front, which is why I don't think that the nickel corner is such a big deal in Al Golden's system as much as we're making it out to be. I do believe you will see Jordan Battle play more in the box, and it's going to be interesting.
Tom?
Switching back to offense on the line. I think the tackle positions are bookend. In fact, I kind of hope they extend Orlando Brown Jr. this year.
Same. That's my guy.
Yeah. So, but with all that, I was struck by this, and James and I have talked about this a lot last year, a little bit with concern. Chase Brown, the shelf life for an NFL running back who carries the burden of the offense is about 4 years. I worry about him even more because do you know how many carries a game he had in Illinois his senior year? 27. He averaged 27 touches a game carrying the ball. How early do we get another running back, and what type? Is it going to be a 235-pound between the tackles, between the guards guy? Because I'm frankly, and I know most of this is on the line, I'm tired of having to throw the ball on 3rd and 2 or 4th and 1 because we don't have the confidence in the guard position to get that yard or yard and a half.
You're saying it right there. The Bengals now understand Joe Burrow, our quarterback, extremely special. He can maneuver past the edge rushers. He can't maneuver when the offensive line is being blown up from the guard spot. It's the reason why Alex Kappa is cut. That plus they were going to pay Alex Kappa $10 million this year, right? They save a lot of money with that. It's the reason why Cole Volson was benched this year, right? They realized we need to get better at the guard spot. So I'm very curious. Will the Bengals change their stripes, as they like to say, right? Will they change their stripes? Will they now attack the guard position with some tenacity? Will they say, you know what? We need to keep our quarterback upright? Because Joe Burrow was still the most hit quarterback in the National Football League last year. You have two bookend tackles. And by the way, you still need a swing tackle. Holland Pierce, Rutgers University. But will the Cincinnati Bengals really put the emphasis on the guard spot? They're telling everybody with an earshot, all the insiders, trust us, we're going to attack the guard spot this year like never before. Okay, we'll see. We'll see if you'll write a check that your ass can cash.
Guards aren't going to be cheap this year. Guards aren't going to be cheap this year.
They never are.
You have to overpay.
But let me hear you. Let me tell you on this. This is probably the most reasonable guard market of guys that aren't necessarily elite, because we saw the elite guys get signed back with their teams. Guys like what's his name from the Chiefs? Trey Smith got signed back with the Chiefs. Right? We saw those guys already back with their team. So it's up to the Cincinnati Bengals now to say, you know what? We're not going to pay $18 million, $20 million like a guy like Trey Smith was anticipated to get, but we will pay maybe 13, maybe 10. How important is it that Joe Burrow stays upright, right, for the remainder of his career? Now,
nothing else we've talked about matters.
Right.
If he keeps getting sacked, and furthermore, if he keeps getting hit, nothing matters. You can spend money on everything else. Nothing matters.
Here's my thing. You trade Trey Hendrickson, potentially, right? Got to say potentially, because people say, Malik Wright, Trey Hendrickson, trade, right? But if you trade Trey Hendrickson, who the hell else are you paying? If you're willing to invest that much money, in your premium positions, right? The guys like the T. Higgins, like the Jamar Chase, like the Joe Burrow, why aren't you equally as, interested in making sure you pay the premium position of offensive guard? Because that's how you make everything tick. Yeah. That's like me saying, hey, you know what? I have a bunch of writers, but I don't want to pay to upgrade our website to make sure it's the best possible. So we got all these writers, and now they're writing on just Word, a Word image site or something like that. It doesn't work out. So the Bengals have to reevaluate themselves. They have to reassess the things. They're not the smartest people in the kitchen. They're not the smartest cooks in the kitchen. Go look at everything. Football is built in the trenches. That's where it starts. That's how it happens. So the Bengals have to make sure that they invest in the interior of the offensive line. You do that, all this thing will take. If Joe Burrow has ample time from a guard spot, he might throw 60 touchdown passes. We have no idea. This guy is talented. The Bengals need to stop flirting with on the cusp, because all this offense was special this year, and they have all these pieces that they're bringing back. You bring back Mike Gesicki, all these people. You better not think that trotting Cody Ford untested out there on the offensive line is really going to get people all cheered up to stream Who Day come September. That's just my thoughts.
And Tom, what you're saying about the running backs as well, I was with you. Like, my initial thought is I want a 6'1", 220 bruising back. I want somebody that can do it. At the end of last season, it kind of showed, with the same coaching staff, it kind of showed what they were interested in doing. Chase Brown was able to do that. And at the NFL Combine, that's something that Zach Taylor and Duke both kind of said, hey, Chase can handle the early down stuff. And for me, I was like,
I agree.
And like, it's a little shocking, but it seems like they believe that he's could be the early down guy. So names like A.J. Dillon may not be the most, likely, but this is also an amazing draft class when it comes to running backs. So I'm definitely excited, to look at whether it's their team. They love to draft these guys round 4, round 5, day 3. So
cool.
Yeah.
Going to back to Jamar, I believe Duke Tobin said they will make Jamar the highest paid non-quarterback. We saw what happened today in Cleveland. Will Duke be eating his words, or hell or high water? He's going to be the highest non-quarterback being paid in the NFL.
I think that is. I think that's the one time you got Duke Tobin to he slipped up a little bit, probably put his foot in his mouth, because now everyone's expecting that, including Jamar Chase. But I think that there's a world in which that does happen. But again, it's going to take some. You shouldn't posture with a guy like Jamar Chase. You postured last year. You saw what happened. He put up a triple crown. Don't flirt with that idea, because guess what? Teams would come knocking at your door for Jamar Chase. Teams would come knocking at Jamar Chase's door for Jamar Chase. So for me, the Cincinnati Bengals need to just, the same way they said to Joe Burrow, hey, blank check. They need to do the exact same thing when it comes to a guy like Jamar Chase. He does not a guy that you should flirt around with and say, you know what, maybe you can maneuver this and do that. No. You pay the guy. The cap is going up. You have the money. You have the opportunity. Sure. Does it suck that you're going to have to pay an extra $10 million? Or I suppose last year you probably would have got him for what looks like now would have been a bargain deal. Yes, but guess what? You pay for elite premium talent, because who the hell else are you paying? Jamar Chase has the ability to be the greatest receiver in Bengals history. Pay him.
End of story. All right. I know you guys got to run. You have a lot of new shows, a lot happening. Well, Tom, you want to end it?
Well, no, but before he goes, Malik and Dan, they have to check their phones one more time. Update us. It could be happening right now. Look at your phones one more time. You'll hear before us.
Any breaking news? Let me translate that for you. Any breaking news before you get off the air?
No, the Bengals do not talk to players until tampering period starts. They do not flirt with players. They do not talk to agents. They do not even throw feelers out there. We know this. But what I will say is, for the people out there like, oh, Malik, I'm not going to pay attention to your show because, the Bengals won't even sign anything. I would not take that bet if I were you. I think the Bengals will be active tomorrow and beyond. I believe they will.
And said show, let's plug the show. I enjoy watching it. Where can fans see Malik, Daniel, coming up?
The Sit Down with Malik Wright's YouTube channel. You can catch us on the Sit Down. We'll be live every single day for Free Agency Frenzy at 7 p.m. from Monday to Friday. We'll be answering all your questions, talking to you. Sometimes the show goes 2 hours, but guess what? We love having you there. I'll be having some guests on. I'm going to try to get my friend Josina Anderson. Maybe I'll get my buddy Jordan Schultz, Starbucks guy, to get to jump on the show. Who knows? But I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I'm excited for this. I hope to see everybody there, but make sure you guys keep following Jim, James, and Tom. These guys do a great job, fantastic job. Love everything that they're about. We appreciate you for having us again.
Thank you, guys.
No, thank
Daniel,
you, guys,
Malik,
so much.
as always, appreciate it. Keep up the great work, guys.
Yes,
Appreciate
sir. Talk to you soon, brother.
Good day, guys. See you
Bye-bye.
soon. Thanks, Malik. Thanks, Daniel.
All right, let's get back to this stream. Malik, more than generous. We thought we had him for 30 minutes there, and more than generous with his time. We talked draft. We talked a lot more than free agency, which certainly was the topic for tonight. And before we wrap up, we still got about 10 minutes or so. Anything you want to talk about in the comments? Huge, almost 6,000 people tuning in tonight. Just huge numbers. I think Jamie and Jimmy need to stay more often. But I do have a picture of Jamie, since he too is in Mexico enjoying the warm springtime weather. I think he said his first vacation since COVID, so much deserved. Just giving you a hard time, Jamie.
They had to get him out of the country to elect a new prime minister. So, I mean,
I see John in the chat. John is our resident expert. We're going to keep Jamie to rope factory expertise. But as always, just huge. Again, can't thank Malik and Daniel enough. But it's interesting. I think I speak for all of Bengals fans. We see it in the chat here tonight. Frustration is probably the number one word out there. Worst case, if you would have told me Wednesday, Tom, here we would be almost 9:00 Sunday night, I would have said Trey would have been traded, T would have been signed, or Jamar would have got a monster deal. And here we are, and nothing's happened.
to get to and win the Super Bowl, so many things have to go right. You have to have great special teams play. You have to have good enough play on your defense. You have to have a Super Bowl defense. You have to have a special offense, and you have to have an incredible quarterback. The Bengals have all that. We've also got a Super Bowl coach. We know that. He took them there. He was, a quarter of a second of a block from winning a Super Bowl. But the one thing the NFL is so big on imitating, and everybody's trying to be the Eagles right now. How many times have you heard Howie Roseman's name?
We heard it tonight, just 15 minutes ago.
It's been a ton. This is how the Eagles are doing it. This is how the Eagles have approached it, and they've been in two of the last three Super Bowls, and won one. You also have to have a stellar Super Bowl, Pro Bowl, All-Pro performance from your front office. I think it is a little too early to go nuts. I know just like you, I thought we'd have T signed by now. I think the parameters are set for the numbers for both he and Jamar. I thought at least one of them would be signed right now so we can move a little more comfortably into free agency. With Trey wanting to be traded, I don't know the dynamics there. I think there are teams that will pay him over 30, but in addition to paying him over 30, well, then they don't want to give up a high draft pick. So I don't know for certain what's going on there, but I know I'd like for it to get solved so we could move forward. So, we got some depth signed and all that. That's good. That's the easy part. But, yeah, they need the front office needs to manage the team like Joe Burrow quarterbacks the team. And – they need to do that. So, and do it quickly. And like I said, let's not have any of this stuff drag into camp. I really don't want to have to talk about it all the way to camp. So I think the parameters there, I think it needs to get done.
Yeah. I mean, I agree to what Dustin said. I just popped it up. We're frustrated in ownership. I will say that. And, not where, again, we thought we'd be. I think it would help us tremendously if we knew how much we were going to designate to Jamar. I think we're probably in the ballpark where we know what that number is going to be. I think certainly, we touched on it with Malik. He's a great human, a hell of a wide receiver, but with the asterisk there, after you make that comment, when healthy. 70%, 72% of the snaps, he's worth every penny. A lot of teams in the NFL would love to have him. We have him for another year, worst case scenario. But again, I think we can get a long-term deal done. We saw it in the chat just before we went live tonight. Steelers gave up a second-round pick for DK Metcalf, turned around and signed him, 5 for $150, so $30 million a year. Whose numbers? I did a side-by-side comparison earlier in the week. Weren't as good as T. Higgins. Comparable.
And I think they'll have their quarterback quick. So we need to check what's the divisions going on. What's going on in Cleveland? I don't know if they're printing monopoly money or what's going on up there. I just know that when they go to the owners meeting and they're at that big table having their fancy spread, there's a little card table off of that, and that's where Jimmy Haslam has to sit by himself. I don't think there's an NFL owner that wants to sit by Jimmy Haslam.
Well, speaking of the division, we saw the Ravens lock up their left tackle for another 3 years. So you look around the division, who knows who's going to be the quarterback in said Cleveland. But listening to a XM radio host today, and his thoughts were kind of opposite mine, that the re-signing of Myles Garrett to Cleveland for that $40 million a year actually hurts the Bengals and hurts Trey, because that's what Trey's going to want. Nobody's going to pay him that, blah, blah, blah. As Malik said, I think, he would take less than that. He's looking for a fit. But we need the other end to come to fruition of, hey, as you said, not only is that team going to pay Trey a boatload of money in excess of probably $25 million, but then we're going to expect a first round or a second round pick from them. And sitting here today, if that happened, I think we'd be happy we take it. But then that puts that pick into the hands of Duke Tobin and the rest of the scouting department. And we can't have any misses. Miles Murphy struggled. I mean, you mentioned the lack of being able to develop a defensive end. Maybe that changes with Al Golden leading the D and who we brought in. But developing a defensive end that is premier, let's use that word, has not happened in the Bengals in a long, long time.
There can be no misses with contracts, and they have to be done. There can be no misses on the draft. Let's get guys in here that are going to help into the future and step in and help now. That's how it has to be for the front office this year. I think we can step right back in and be a Super Bowl contender. I think we can step in and dominate this division. The pieces are all there, but everybody has to do their part. including those top offices at Paycor. And that's, we know those people. They're good people. They're smart people. It just hasn't gotten done yet. And I understand a fan's schedule can be different than an owner's schedule. And boy, is it easy to spend somebody else's money. But we really want that Super Bowl. And, we want to see that from everybody.
The other thing I hear a lot about from fans, whether it's on social media or just talking, is we have a window with Joe Burrow. I think as long as Joe Burrow is our quarterback, there's a chance. We can't have the slow starts we've had in years past, but we have the chance, and we can't let that window close. We're not, 5 players on each side of the ball away from being back in that AFC Championship game or that Super Bowl. Give Joe a couple seconds to throw the damn ball. Let's not give up 40 points on defense. If we give up 20, fine. We can put up way more than that on offense. So we're not far away, but, this is an important offseason. We've talked about that quite a bit. The Bengals are going to be particular about where they spend. But, first and foremost, we need to take care of our own, and that's Jamar and T right now. And, hopefully before the clock strikes midnight, there'll be some smoke billowing from Paycor Stadium with good news, but who knows? We are at the hour. I'm going to give a little tease. Folks started to ask about Jungle Jam for 2025. Stay tuned. The ball's rolling. The date is being worked on. And I think everybody is going to be happy when that announcement comes. So we appreciate
the place will be completely air conditioned this year, 100%.
With that said, I'm going to end it there. As always, we appreciate Malik and Daniel's time. We know Jimmy will be back next week. Jamie, who knows? Who knows knowing him, he'll probably lose his passport in Mexico again, and probably going to be stuck working at a margarita stand on the beach for a couple of weeks till the new Canadian Prime Minister can send him a new one. But go ahead and end us tonight, Tom.
No, again, thank you so much. It means so much to us that fellow Bengal fans want to hang out and listen to us and talk with us. It means so much. So it is appreciated. Next week, our scheduled guest is Cincinnati media personality, former University of Cincinnati Bearcat quarterback Tony Pike, who follows the Bengals very, very closely. So we will look forward to that and look forward to seeing everybody next Sunday night at 8 p.m. on Bengal Jim and Friends. Thank you so much.
Take care. Hoo day, everybody.